Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is Purple Sabbath, and right off the bat, first of all, I just want to apologize for the noise. I have the AC running, but it's a bit warm right now in this apartment, so that's the reason why I have it running. So today we're going to be taking a look at something that for a long time was a holy grail of mine, and then we just recently got a hold of it within the last month or two. I got it back in, I think it was late September, early October, so I've had it for about a month and a half, roughly, and I wanted to give my thoughts on this set. It is the Beatles in mono, and this is the official set. The first time I bought this set, I ended up with the fake set, the counterfeit one, and I was thoroughly disappointed in that set. I got that about 3 or 4 years ago, and I was kind of just stuck with that. I'll be honest with you though, I didn't really listen to it that much. It was just, every time I looked at it, it was just disappointment, because the outer box was decent, but the inner sleeves were just so awful, very poor quality. Well, after I got this, I ended up throwing that set out. I just threw it in the trash, because that's where it belongs. Yeah, it's an absolute garbage set, because it's just fake, and it's not even a good fake. It's very low quality. Not a lot of effort went into it to make it look like the real thing, except for the outer box. They trick you with that. So the one I have here is a used set that I got on eBay. It does have this sticker here. I'm not sure what that's all about. I'm guessing that was maybe the store that sold this to the owner that then sold it to me. I don't know if he got it used. Could be possible this has gone through multiple hands, which, you know, is kind of typical for you know, collectibles over the years. They tend to get sold off, and then other people tend to have them. Like I said, I got this set, I'm pretty sure I ordered this the last week of September, and it probably arrived like early October. It's in good condition. It has a few minor blemishes and scuffs and things. There's a little thing here, and then that sticker kind of detracts, but honestly, I didn't care as long as the CDs themselves were in good shape, and they are. They're in fantastic shape. They're all of them are in near mint condition. The discs play perfectly. I played all of them. They don't have any issues with skipping or anything like that, which is great. So let's go through the contents of this box. First of all, you get this really nice booklet that goes through kind of, you know, the mono mixes and what makes them unique, you know, and kind of why they're worth getting. Has some nice photos in here too of the Fab Four, and my camera keeps recognizing the faces on here and putting little squares around them. I'm telling you, this camera is crazy. It's a good camera too. I've had it for like 10 years, but it's pretty good. It's served me well over the years. Here's I like this photo. This is the one they used for the cover for Beatles 65, I think, in the US. It keeps recognizing Paul's face in particular. It's kind of weird. You can't see that, or at least I don't think you can. I hope not, because that would be distracting as fuck. But yeah, I mean, it's a nice booklet. One thing that's really nice is it goes through the track listing, and it's helpful when knowing what tracks to listen to when it comes to the stereo tracks for Help and Rubber Soul, because you do get the original stereo mixes for those albums. But yeah, for the most part, these are all just mono. There's no stereo on most of these discs. But yeah, nice little booklet. Let's put that to the side. Let's go through the albums now. Now, the thing that's really nice about this, and one of the main reasons why I wanted this set, apart from actually owning the mono mixes, is the fact that they have done an extremely good job of reproducing the original UK LP jackets. They even have the flip back covers, which is really nice. They've reproduced all of the text and everything, and it's very sharp, so even though it's small, it is still legible. And I have nearsightedness. So if you're farsighted, you might have trouble reading this, but as someone who doesn't have nearsightedness or farsightedness, I can read this just fine. But yeah, they come in these little plastic sleeves. When you take them out, they have the laminated covers, nice and shiny. Except in the back, those aren't laminated. And they've even reproduced the original inner sleeves, where it says, "Take good care of your microgroove records. Check your gramophone stylus regularly. A worn stylus will give poor reproduction. A chipped stylus will permanently damage a record." Yes, this is actually good information. I wish new records had this kind of information on them. It's the same thing on the back. But they put the discs in these rice paper sleeves. These are similar to the ones the Japanese... these are made in Japan, by the way, but they're similar to the LP sleeves that you get. And they've also reproduced the original gold Parlophone label, which is very nice. This is a very nice label. This is the only Beatles album that ever had this logo on it. But yeah, it is made in Japan, as you can see. And you can kind of tell these are different from US CDs. It's probably hard to tell on camera, but there's a certain... the material they use, I think, is a little bit higher quality. So that's really awesome. It's really cool, because they didn't have to do this. You know, they could have just put these in rice paper sleeves and called it a day, but they went ahead and reproduced the original inner sleeves on all of these. They didn't have to put the fold backs, or the flip back covers, I should say, but they did it anyway. Now, most of these I'm not going to take out of the sleeve, because a lot of these have the same inner sleeves and a lot of them have the same labels, but I will show you. I'm definitely going to show you that one. With the Beatles is the next one. That iconic photo that was also used on Meet the Beatles in the US. Now this one I'm going to take out. Laminated cover, just like the other one. And this one has the yellow Parlophone label, because they had retired the gold one by this point. I think actually Please Please Me was one of the last albums to have that old logo. But only then, even then, only early pressings have that. But yeah, this one, it's got the yellow label. I never liked this label as much. Maybe I'm just more used to seeing it. But it is a little bit more plain, I suppose. Not bad, but just, you know. It is nice, though, that they've reproduced the labels that correspond with each album as they were originally released. Next one is A Hard Day's Night. Hard Day's Night is my favorite of all the early Beatles albums. It tends to be a favorite because it's the first Beatles album and the only one for a long time, all the way up to Rubber Soul, that is all original compositions. They're all Lennon McCartney compositions. So that's pretty cool. And here we have Beatles for Sale. This album is okay. I'll admit it's one of my least favorite Beatles albums, but you know, it's got some stuff on here, mainly things like 8 Days a Week, No Reply, I'm a Loser. Those are good songs. What's another one? Oh, What You're Doing. What You're Doing is great. It has a great drum intro. But yeah, this one this was the first Beatles album to have a gatefold cover, and this is a very nice gatefold cover. And it actually comes out right here, the LP does, instead of from the other side. But it's the same as the last two we looked at. Same sleeve, same yellow Parlophone label, nothing special about it. Help. Another one of my favorites of the early albums. Those photos in the back, those are nice. Oh, Some of these I put on the side because it's easier to get them in and out because these flaps tend to catch on the sleeves. But yeah, same thing. In fact, I don't know why I even bothered taking this one out. I said I wasn't going to take all of them out. There I go, taking that one out for no reason. But if you put them in sideways, or if you put the flap in the front, that tends to help a lot getting them back in. But there's that one. And here we have Rubber Soul with its kind of odd cover, the weird squashed aspect ratio. The color on this it's pretty close to brown on this one, but some of these it comes across more like a reddish color, like an orangey red on the camera, but it's very close to brown. And in the US, it's even more brown than this one is. But yeah, the back cover on this one is nice too. I like these photos. This was actually the first Beatles album I ever had on CD. The CD I picked up of this, the first one I got was the 1987 pressing with the remixed audio by George Martin. And here is Revolver, which is my personal favorite Beatles album. It's just a fantastic album. I love the cover. The flip backs really stand out on this one because you have the black background with the white against it. So out of all of them, I think this one has the coolest looking flip backs. It just has a nice contrast to it. And here is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band with its iconic cover that I'm sure you've all seen before. I like what they've done here on the back too. And then I really like where it says, "This is a mono recording, a splendid time is guaranteed for all." This one, of course, is gatefold. It's a lovely image there. This comes with also the cutouts. The idea was you could put your own mustache on yourself. And you could look just like Sgt. Pepper. And the rest of the band. They grew out mustaches just for this album. That's dedication there, folks. Yeah, and the material they've used appears to be pretty, much the same, the cardboard material. The disc is pretty much the same. However, it does have a different inner sleeve. It has the iconic sort of psychedelic inner sleeve here. Oh, the camera's going out of focus for some reason. Anyway, there's that. Next CD is a US album, Magical Mystery Tour. This was a Capitol Records creation. Basically, Capitol Records, whenever they were tasked with releasing this in the States, the songs from the film, they realized that releasing a double EP would be a disaster in the US because there just wasn't a lot of market. There wasn't a large market at that time in the US for EPs, so they instead decided to put all of the film tracks on side 1 and then 5 single and B-side tracks on side 2, which I think was a brilliant idea because you end up with 4 really fantastic songs and 1 song that's just okay. Baby Here Rich Man is it's not a bad song. It's fine, but it's never been one of my favorites. And it does also include the booklet. It was the same booklet that was included in the UK EP. And basically what they've done is mostly they've just taken stills from the film, and they have put those in here. And then there's this little comic thing that kind of more or less goes through the events of the film, although it's not perfect. I must admit, though, I've never actually sat down and watched the entire Magical Mystery Tour film, but I have watched sort of like reviews that go through it, and the reviewers have pointed out that the comic that's included here doesn't perfectly sync up with the film. But it's a very nice booklet, nonetheless. And here we have the last Beatles album to be released in mono in the UK, or the last one to receive a dedicated mono mix at least, which is the White Album. It doesn't have any numbers on it, which is kind of disappointing, but not a huge deal. It's a top loader, just like the original UK copy. Here's those 4 photos and track listing. They come in these black inner sleeves, and it does include a mini replica of the original poster, which I actually have the full-size version of this poster hanging up in my bedroom. But yeah, they've reproduced that extremely well, as with everything else. Has all the lyrics on the back. A lot easier to access these two. On the original, it was hard to read them because it's such a big fold-out poster. And these also have the Apple logo on them. I must admit, though, when it comes to the White Album, I generally tend to prefer most of the tracks in stereo, so I don't listen to the White Album in mono as often. But it is still a pretty good mix, and it has a number of variances and differences from the stereo mix. Here's the other disc. This one has the cut Apple. And it also has many reproductions of the original photographs. Once again, very well reproduced. I can attest to that because I do have an original US vinyl pressing of the White Album, and the photos that come with it are pretty much identical. Same thing with the poster. Now, one thing my US copy doesn't have, of course, is the top loading and the flipbacks here. Other than that, it's the same. And finally, we have the Mono Masters, which includes all of the Beatles tracks that were mixed in mono that didn't make an appearance on a Beatles album. So you have most of the tracks, same tracks that were on past masters, but all the ones that were mixed in stereo are missing. There are some tracks on here that weren't on past masters. Most notably the tracks that were recorded for the Yellow Submarine film. So you have Only Northern Song, All Together Now, Hey Bulldog, and It's All Too Much. And their mono mixes here are, in my opinion, much better than the original stereo mixes, but not quite as good as the mixes found on the 1999 song track version of Yellow Submarine, which includes stereo remixes of all of the tracks that were featured in the film. Here's Mono Masters. Get that nice photograph. They have nothing except for these paper sleeves, but you get the Parlophone here, and you get, of course, the Apple logo over here. So nothing too special about that, but they did do it that way. So that's all the CDs that are included in here. There are a grand total of 13 discs when you take into account that these last two here are double CDs, so that's 13 CDs in total. So now the question that I am posing with the title, I've decided the title video is the Beatles in mono CD box set still worth getting? And of course the idea behind that is you know, there are new mixes that have been coming out for a lot of these albums, and most recently we got the red and blue mixes. In fact, I did order the red album mix. Whenever that comes, I'll do a review on that. But you know, like Sgt. Pepper's, Revolver, White Album, a lot of those have gotten new mixes. So is this set still worth getting? And I would say the answer to that is yes. I do think these sets are worth. This set is still worth getting. I think the mono mixes here offer enough historical value that it's worth getting, especially when it comes to things like Sgt. Pepper's, because the new mix that was done in 2017 of Sgt. Pepper's is great. But there are a few things from the mono mix that weren't translated very well, in my opinion. For example, this album has pretty heavy use of phasing effects throughout that are just not reproduced very well in the new mix. Mind you, they were missing entirely from the original stereo mix. So, you know, there are improvements when it comes to the original stereo mix. And I still think, for the most part, the new mixes sound great. But when it comes to, like, the White Album, you know, I think you're better off listening to the original stereo mix. And, the mono mix here is not the definitive mix, but it is definitely worth listening to. And then we still have plenty of tracks here that still haven't gotten new mixes, or at least haven't gotten new mixes that have been released yet. You know, you have plenty of songs from Please Please Me that haven't gotten new mixes. You know, Misery, On I Go to Him, Chains, Boys, all of those. A lot of tracks from here have not gotten new mixes. Same thing with, I think the album that I think has the most value in this set might be Beatles for Sale. Now, it's subjected for debate whether the stereo or mono mix of this album is better. I personally tend to prefer the stereo mixes when it comes to this album, but I know for some people the stereo separation might be a little much. Same thing with A Hard Day's Night. The mono mix here is very good. And a lot of the tracks here, like Things We Said Today, that's my favorite song from this album, and that hasn't gotten a new mix yet. I think it will eventually, but, you know, that's a thing. And I think, actually, another album here that's really worth looking at is Magical Mystery Tour, because the mono mixes here sound really, really good, and are better, in my opinion, than the stereo mixes. Now, when it comes to I Am the Walrus, the new mix that just came out from that one recently, I like that new mix just fine, but it's so different from the original. I would say I prefer the original mono mix. The stereo mix is great too, but it has that weird kind of like fake stereo thing going on at the halfway point when the radio effects kick in. And because of that, I tend to just prefer to listen to the whole thing in mono. So yes, I do think this set is still worth getting. Even if every single one of these albums ended up getting stereo mixes, and every track on here got a stereo mix that was vastly superior to all the mixes on here, I still think this set would be worth getting for historical reasons. Now, when it comes to the stereo mixes, the original stereo albums, I think those are worth listening to as well, and I'll talk more about those later. At this time, I don't have the stereo box set from 2009. I'm going to try to get my hands on that soon. I know it's not a very expensive set. It's cheaper than this one. So I will let you know what I think of that set whenever I do get my hands on it. I have listened to most of those stereo albums, though. And I do have some of the 1987 CDs. You know, I've got Revolver, Sgt. Pepper's, the White Album. Those sound fantastic. Even though in a lot of cases those are inferior mixes, they still sound really good because they were mastered extremely well, because they were just basically transferred flat from the original master tapes. So yes, I do think when it comes to the original mono mixes, those are still always going to have value, and especially since it's really hard to get a hold of these mono mixes. You know, there aren't any new vinyl pressings that contain these original mixes. I mean, there's the 2014 ones, but those are very expensive. This set is starting to go up in price too. I managed to get lucky and I got this set for just a little over $100. I think I paid maybe like $130 for it, which really isn't a bad price. So yeah, this is a fantastic set. and that's my final assessment of it. Is I think if you're a Beatles fan and you want to hear how most people would have heard these albums back in the day, especially when it comes to the early albums, or at least in the UK, because I know in the US people didn't hear these albums the same way. And speaking of which, I do also have the US albums box set. I'm going to do a review on that as well, and we'll kind of evaluate whether or not that set is worth getting as well. But for now, I will just say this is a fantastic set. It was extremely well done, and I do recommend it if you're a Beatles fan. But that's it for now. I'll see you guys later. Take care.